So President Trump wants a military parade. The New York Times is reporting that the military is actually working on giving Trump a grand, wonderful, beautiful, tremendous parade. In fact, according to, I should say, citing a military official who spoke on the condition of anonymity, he said the marching orders were, "I want a parade like the one in France." It has to be like the one in France, Ron. It can't be like any other kind of parade. It has to be like a French one.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a French parade, but with a little bit more freedom.
Yeah, right.
Now, in fact, the Times says the inspiration for Trump's push is last year's Bastille Day celebration in Paris. Of course, that's when President Trump was actually there as a guest of President Emmanuel Macron, the centrist neoliberal. We don't really have to get too much into him. Trump was awestruck by the tableau of uniformed French troops marching down Avenue de Champs, whatever, with tanks, armored vehicles, gun trucks, carriers, complete with fighter jets flying over the Arc de Triomphe and painting the sky with streaks of blue, white, red, and red smoke for the colors of the French flag. This apparently gave Trump a gigantic war boner. Because nothing spells patriotism like showing off all the stuff that you can murder people with.
Okay, so do we want to tell people what really happened? Like why he's really doing this?
We'll get to it. It. I just want to add that nothing gets morons more excited than watching weapons of war go by. Just saying.
Yeah, I mean Brian Williams comes in his pants whenever he sees a missile.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Trump was watching that entire parade with one hand on his junk. Just saying.
And it's huge, believe me.
Huge. Well, I mean, if you have tiny hands, of course it's going to be bigger. It's going to feel bigger.
True.
Now, aboard Air Force One, he said Trump had told aides that he was dazzled by the French display and he wanted one home. And it was on his mind even 2 months later when he met with Macron. He said, "It was one of the greatest parades I'd ever seen. Big, beautiful parade. Big, beautiful weapons. It was 2 hours on the button. Military might. And I think a tremendous thing for France and for the spirit of France. We're going to have to try to top it." All right, so, Ron.
Probably the only time he actually had an ideological stance on anything, a parade.
I know. Because it's got to be better than France.
Right. Well, here's the thing. I think it's nice that they dressed this up like, oh, he saw something in France and it gave him a war boner. But here's what's also really going on. When are the only times that President Trump has been praised as a whole by the media and by the establishment?
Anytime he bombs somebody.
Exactly. Anytime he has an act of war or a war-esque rhetorical event. You know, when was he declared? At that moment, he became presidential. Well, when he dropped bombs on Syria. That was when they said that. That was the moment that he became presidential. Also, let's keep in mind, what was the one event where he got an applause break every 5 minutes because he successfully read a sentence? That was the war rally disguised as a State of the Union address. Boom. Trump has one trick. It's PR. So he knows that war is the one thing he can get right. We love endless war. That's what we're all about.
Yep.
So he wants to have a big parade to help his numbers. And that's all this is. Trump knows how to play the establishment like a fiddle. PR is the one trick he has. That's the one thing he's good at. And now that you've shown him, I mean, it's kind of like just giving positive reinforcement to a little kid.
Right.
You know, I mean,
Basically.
Now that you've shown him, this is when you get rewarded when you're a warmonger. He's going to be a warmonger. He probably doesn't even remember that the whole non-interventionist lie helped get him elected. It doesn't matter at this point. Like he gets a pat on the back when he's a warmonger, so he's going to do it. And that means having a parade. That's another moment he can be in the spotlight. He might even get an opportunity to pass some paper towels to people. Who knows?
Yeah, you're right. If there's one thing Americans love, it's endless war. It's militarism. And so, I mean, you even look at the Democrats, right? The Democrats just voted. They just got into an agreement with, at least in the Senate, with Chuck Schumer and Mitch McConnell, got together and decided to give over $100 billion, I think somewhere $130 billion to the Pentagon as part of a deal to keep the government open. Here, let's just hand over more money to the Pentagon. We already, spend $700 billion already on the Pentagon. And by the way, this is the same Pentagon that lost $800 million. Just randomly. Gone. Poof.
I saw an article in The Hill today about that very budget, and the way that it described the budget, it literally had defense spending and non-defense spending. And that just shows how insane our defense budget is. We literally can just categorize defense as just one thing, and everything else is so marginal in comparison. It's just non-defense. So it's like, well, you're either defense or you're non-defense. You're in that et cetera category if you're not defense spending. That's how out of hand we are as a nation when it comes to defense spending. And what does the bill not include? You guessed it, DACA. The Dems caved on DACA. At this point, Nancy Pelosi is just asking for a commitment from Paul Ryan to promise that he'll consider it at some point. That's how that's your resistance. That's your resistance. Hey, promise you'll talk about this at some point.
They're resisting so hard. It must be so difficult to resist so much. I mean, man, how do they do it? Especially with those soft little jellyfish spines.
They do it with donor money in their pocket. That's how they do it.
Donor money. For a second, I thought you were going to say donut Twitter. I don't know why.
Well,
it's the same people.
Their thing too.
It is the same people.
That is also their thing.
Yeah. So, and look, that $800 million that's lost, it didn't get lost. It went into somebody's pocket. Just like the rest of this money, it's going right to the defense contractors that use that money, take billions and billions of dollars, and what do? They spend it on bombs that right now we're using to bomb Yemen with. We're giving the Saudi Arabians, the Wahhabiist, like you want to say we're worried about Islamic terrorism, right? Saudi Arabia is an exporter of terror. And, oh, no, they're our friends because they have oil.
Yep.
It's the petrodollar. So, no, we're going to ignore Saudi Arabia and the fact that they have spread the Wahhabist Islam all over the Middle East. And those same people radicalized by the Saudis are the same people that we're supposedly at war with or was at war with ISIS. I don't know. It's insane. But again, we're going to drop more money.
Insane. And even the people are like, oh, well, what about, maintaining some kind of world cooperation and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, well, couldn't we have a positive role in that and not exploit endless war in the Middle East? Like, why do we have to have, like why do we have to pick one or the other or have both or none? Can't we just have, like the good stuff as far as world diplomacy and not exploit in the Middle East? Why do we have to, the U.S. does this, and this? Yeah, but we also pursue endless war over resources. Why do we have to do that part of it? We don't. That doesn't have to be part of it.
Yeah. And yet they'll never understand that because it's linked to their paychecks. The defense industry, so-called defense industry, I should put an asterisk or, air quotes by it every time I say it. Because it's not a defense, it's offense. It's the war budget. It's the war office, the war industry. And that's our main export. War, death, weapons. That's it. It ain't, sure as hell ain't freedom.
Or democracy.
Exactly. And by the way, what happened to the anti-war left? Where'd it go? I mean, you're pretty much looking at it right here.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's just some independent media is pretty much what's left of it, and a lot of activists,
absolutely.
So it's not just. But
they're not in the.
That's pretty much it.
They're not in the Democratic Party.
No.
Not as a whole.
They are not. No.
They're not in the Democratic leadership.
Absolutely not.
They're definitely not in the media, who hasn't found a war that they have not beat the drums for in forever. So you're basically looking at the anti-war left and seeing these displays of military might, even if it is just to placate a child who's like, ooh, shiny toys.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, that makes me think of the movie Toys, right? And Robin Williams, what he said about war, his character, war is the domain of the tiny penis. Just saying. Mm-hmm. from his lips to God's ears, basically, if you believe in that. And that definitely sums up President Trump.
Yeah, I think we got it. I think we got it all.
Nailed it. Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.